I never thought my husband would keep his mistress in the apartment directly below ours. It was 2 in the morning, the first time I'd ever followed Ethan in the dead of night. 3 years of marriage had settled into that quiet, unassuming routine. Coffee at 7, dinner at 6, him pulling late shifts at the hospital. I'd thought we'd drift through the decades like that, steady and unremarkable, until the small, unignorable inconsistencies started piling up. The password-locked phone, the once-a-month intimacy, the string of late nights he blamed on back-to-back surgeries. I'd kept my eyes closed, feigning sleep, for 2 hours when the mattress dipped. I peeked through slitted lids and watched Ethan slip out of bed in his bathrobe, bare feet silent on the hardwood, fumbling for the front door without turning on a single light. For a split second, I told myself he was just using the guest bathroom. Then the soft snick of the deadbolt clicked down the hall. I was out of bed in seconds, pressing my eye to the peephole just in time to see him step into the elevator. The digital numbers above the door ticked down 1 floor and stopped. 6. We lived on 7. The glowing 6 bow burned into my vision. All the little red flags of the past month slammed into me at once, and the cold, unshakable truth settled in my chest. Ethan was cheating, and the woman was 1 floor below me. Rage and humiliation burned up my throat. I wanted to kick down that 603 door, scream at them both, make a scene the whole building would talk about for months. But the longer I stood there, the quieter my anger went, hardening into something sharp and cold. I took the stairwell down, my socks silent on the concrete. The hallway was dark, 3 doors on either side. I pressed my ear to each one, heart hammering, until I reached 603. A faint red welcome banner hung above the frame. New tenants, moved in a few weeks back. Through the door, I heard Ethan laugh. Low, warm. The laugh I'd thought was only for me. Underneath it, a woman's soft, breathy hum. "You're such a tease, calling me down here in the middle of the night. What if she catches us?" The woman mumbled something back, too muffled to make out, and Ethan chuckled again. My knees went weak. I pressed a hand to my mouth to hold in the sound. This was the man my father had pulled out of obscurity. The broke med student he'd mentored, promoted, handed a career most surgeons spend decades chasing. This was the man I'd married, the man everyone called the perfect, devoted husband. I stood there for what felt like hours, until the sounds behind the door died down. Every instinct screamed to kick the door in, to ruin them both right then. But a smaller, colder voice in my head said, "Don't show your hand yet." I don't remember how I got back up to 703. I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark and watched the clock tick for 3 hours until the front door creaked open again. Ethan slipped back into the apartment quiet as a shadow. He climbed into bed on his side, and within minutes, he was snoring. I stared at the ceiling, tears soaking the pillow, and thought about all the ways I was going to make him pay. Chapter 2. The Girl at the Door. I pulled myself together by morning. I brushed my hair, put on a sweater, and stood in the kitchen making coffee like nothing was wrong. The doorbell rang at 7 sharp. It was Marnie, Ethan's mother, swinging a canvas tote full of grocery store muffins like she owned the place. She waddled in, nose already wrinkled, and kicked a stack of Amazon boxes by the door with her shoe. "Honestly, Harper, this place is a mess," she said, dropping into the couch with a huff. "I know you quit your consulting job, but the least you could do is keep the house up for Ethan. He's up for department head next quarter. He needs a wife who's on top of things, not someone who orders junk online all day." I bit down on my tongue. 3 years of this. 3 years of her nitpicking, her backhanded compliments, her endless reminders that her son was a brilliant surgeon, and I was lucky to have him. As if he hadn't gotten every single opportunity on my father's coattails. She helped herself to an orange from the fruit bowl and nodded at my stomach. "Look, I'll be straight with you. You two have been married 3 years and nothing's happening. Ethan's fine. I know he is. You need to go see a fertility specialist. They can do IVF now, pick the gender and everything. Wouldn't it be nice to give Ethan a son to carry on the Bennett name? Can't have the Bennett line dying out because you waited too long. I laughed before I could stop myself. A sharp, bitter sound. Marnie's face tightened. What's that supposed to mean? I'm looking out for you. A woman your age. I'll make an appointment, Marnie, I said, flat. If that's all, I need to get breakfast started before Ethan wakes up. She huffed, let herself out, and I noticed on her way out she'd stuffed 3 of my fancy soy candles into her tote. Classic. Ethan stumbled out of the bedroom an hour later, crisp scrubs under his blazer, all warm smiles and charm. I spotted the faint pink scratch marks curling up the back of his neck, deep and fresh. Heading out, babe, he said, leaning in for a kiss. I've got 3 surgeries today. Can you pick me up tonight around 7? I smiled back, easy as anything, and watched him walk to the elevator. The second the doors closed, the smile dropped off my face. I went to the window and watched him get in an Uber down on the street. Then I grabbed my phone, opened Uber Eats, and placed an order to apartment 603, an oat milk latte, extra vanilla, and a $50 tip in the notes. I texted the driver ahead of time. When they open the door, snap a quick picture of the inside for me. Don't say anything. The tip's yours. I had to know who she was. 30 minutes later, the photo came through. Blurry, rushed, the driver clearly spooked. But I could make it out. A little girl, no older than 5, dark hair and pigtails, standing in the doorway. A voice note followed, breathless. Sorry. Kid answered the door. Didn't see anyone else. Cute kid, though. 5 stars would be great, I gotta run. My blood ran cold. A daughter. Ethan always said he wanted a little girl. Marnie did too, though she'd always insisted on a grandson first, for the family name. Now it made a sick kind of sense. He already had his daughter. He just needed me to pop out a son, the respectable heir, while his real family lived 1 floor below. I was still sitting there, numb, when the doorbell rang again. I opened it, and there she was, Lila Moore, 21 years old, soft blonde hair, big doe eyes, the college student I'd been sponsoring for the last 5 years. I'd found her through a youth scholarship program when she was 16, paid her tuition, her rent, her groceries. I'd thought of her like a little sister. She held up a gift bag, smiling sweetly. Harper, I picked up some supplements for your dad. I know he's been in the ICU, and his birthday's tomorrow. I wanted to come with you to visit him, if that's okay. My dad, Arthur Hayes, had suffered a massive cerebral hemorrhage 2 weeks prior. He was still unconscious. With him out of commission, Ethan had stepped in to run most of his private practice and take over his cases at the hospital. Exactly the position Ethan had always wanted. I let her in. For half a second, I almost broke down, almost told her everything about Ethan and the woman downstairs. But I bit it back. Not yet. Not until I had proof. Lila set the bag down and started tidying up the coffee mugs on the counter, casual as anything. Hey, I heard you're thinking about IVF. That's so exciting. Do you think you'll go for a boy? I froze. How did you hear about IVF? Marnie only mentioned it this morning. Her smile faltered just for a second. Oh, Ethan told me. I ran into him at the hospital gift shop a few days ago, picking up stuff for your dad. He mentioned you two were talking about starting a family. I stared at her. A few days ago? She'd never once mentioned meeting up with Ethan alone before. Before I could press her, there was a soft, clumsy knock at the front door. Small fists, tapping too low. I walked over and peered through the peephole. A little girl. The same little girl from the photo. She called out, high and wobbly. Hello? I locked myself out. Can you call my mom for me? My heart jumped into my throat. The kid from 603. She'd climbed the stairs all by herself and knocked on my door. I reached for the doorknob. A crash rang out behind me. I spun around. Lila had dropped a glass vase on the tile, shards everywhere, blood beading on her palm. Ow! Oh my God, I'm so sorry! She babbled, panicking. Go! Go handle the glass. I'll go check on the kid. Before I could say a word, she'd yanked the front door open, stepped outside, and slammed it shut behind her. I stood there, holding the first aid kit I'd grabbed from the closet, staring at the closed door. That had been fast. Too fast. I crossed the hall and pulled the door open. The hallway was empty. No little girl, no Lila. I called her name, walking toward the stairwell. A second later, Lila came huffing around the corner. Her grandma was looking for her on the floor above, she said, breathless. She wandered off, poor thing. I walked her back. Everything's fine. I stared at her. The girl had said she was locked out, not lost. And I knew for a fact she was from 603, the floor below, not above. Lila brushed past me back into the apartment, already kneeling to pick up glass shards with her bleeding hand. I stood in the doorway, cold creeping up my spine, and a terrible, obvious thought clicked into place. What if the woman in 603 was Lila? Chapter 3: The Crash. Dinner that night was a disaster. Ethan came home from the hospital, Marnie in tow, and the second they walked in the door, Marnie started in on me again. Lila was still there, perched at the dining table, all soft smiles and innocent looks. Harper, I heard you didn't pick Ethan up from work, Marnie said, dropping heavily into a chair. He had to Uber home in the rain after a 12-hour shift. That's not very wifely of you. Ethan shot me a look, half exasperated, half smug. It's fine, Mom. She's been stressed about her dad. Stressed isn't an excuse, Marnie huffed, and while we're at it, you need to talk to your dad about the car. Ethan's almost got his full license. He passed the written test months ago. Your dad's got that old Porsche sitting in the garage. He can at least buy Ethan a new Tesla for work. Think of how much easier it'd be for him to get to surgeries on time. I slammed the knife down on the cutting board. A new Tesla? I said, turning to face her. Ethan's entire career? This apartment? Every single thing he has came from my dad. When is enough for you people? Marnie's face turned purple. How dare you? Ethan is a brilliant, hard-working man. You think he needs your dad's handouts? You're lucky he married you. Stuck-up little rich girl. Mom, Lila piped up, soft and soothing, stepping between us. Don't be mad at Harper. She's going through so much right now. I looked from Marnie to Lila, to Ethan standing in the doorway watching it all, and a sick feeling washed over me. The three of them. Like they were the family, and I was just the outsider with the bank account. Marnie stormed out an hour later. Ethan cornered me in the kitchen, voice low and angry. Was that really necessary? Humiliating my mom like that? He said. You've been impossible lately. Is this because you're bored now that you quit working? I opened my mouth to snap back, to yell that I knew about 603, that I knew about the girl, that I knew about her. But Lila glided up behind him, resting a hand on his arm like it was the most natural thing in the world. Ethan, don't, she said soft. She's upset. Let's all just calm down. I didn't say a word. I turned and walked into the bedroom, slamming the door behind me. I laid in bed that night, eyes wide open, planning. I'd call a lawyer first thing. I'd get proof of the affair. I'd take everything. Lila came in an hour later, freshly showered, slipping into the other side of the bed like we were old friends. She'd asked to stay over, said it was too late to drive back to campus, and I'd agreed. I wanted to watch her. Harper? She whispered a few minutes later. You awake? I didn't answer. I kept my breathing slow, even, like I was asleep. A few minutes later, I heard the bed creak. The bedroom door clicked open, then shut soft. I sat straight up. I crept to the door and pressed my ear to the crack. Down the hall, from the direction of the home office, I heard it. Low voices, Lila's breathy little laugh, Ethan's quiet groan. I stumbled back, hand over my mouth. It was true. All of it. The man I'd married, the girl I'd saved, fed, clothed, put through college. They'd been playing me this whole time. The apartment downstairs, the little girl, 5 years old. 5 years. I'd started sponsoring Lila when she was 16. She'd had Ethan's baby when she was still a kid. This wasn't an affair. It was a con. 5 years in the making. I walked out to the kitchen on autopilot and grabbed the biggest kitchen knife from the block. The steel glinted in the moonlight from the window. I walked down the hall, bare feet silent on the carpet, heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. I was going to kill them both. I was 2 steps from the office door when my phone started blaring on the kitchen counter, loud as a siren. I froze. The noises in the office cut off instantly, panicked scrambling. I turned and ran back to the bedroom, shoving the knife under my pillow, just as Lila called out from the hall. "Harper, your phone's ringing. It's the hospital." I fumbled the phone to my ear. It was the ICU nurse. "Ms. Hayes, your father's condition has worsened. He's spiking a fever. We're moving him back to the OR. We need you here immediately. There are consent forms to sign." All the rage drained out of me, replaced by cold terror. Dad. I threw on clothes and ran for the door. Ethan was already in the hallway, faking a sleepy yawn, Lila right behind him, looking perfectly innocent. "I'll drive," I snapped. The rain hit the second we pulled out of the garage. It poured, sheets of water slamming the windshield, wipers going full speed. I took the back route through the industrial district, the one with no stoplights, no cameras, no traffic. My hands were shaking on the wheel. "Let me drive," Ethan said suddenly. "You're too upset. It's fine. Nobody's out this late. No cops will pull us over." I hesitated. He only had his learner's permit. He wasn't legal to drive alone. "Come on, Harper," Lila chimed in from the back seat. "Ethan's a great driver. You should focus on your dad." I pulled over and swapped seats. I picked my phone back up, calling the hospital back for updates, and Ethan floored it down the dark, wet road. We were 3 minutes from the hospital when it happened. A loud, heavy thud. The car jolted. The windshield spiderwebbed with blood. I screamed. Lila shrieked. Ethan slammed on the brakes. The car skidded to a halt on the wet asphalt. Through the rain, I could see a body crumpled on the side of the road 20 feet ahead. A man in a dark suit, not moving. "Oh my God," I gasped. "Ethan, we have to call 911. I reached for my phone. Ethan's hand shot out and snatched it from me, hurling it into the dashboard. The screen shattered. "Are you insane?" he hissed. "I don't have a license. If they catch me driving, my career is over. Everything is over." I stared at him, disbelieving. "You hit someone? We have to help him." I threw my door open and ran for the body. The rain soaked through my clothes in seconds. The man was on his back, face covered in blood, not moving. I knelt down and felt for a pulse. Faint. Barely there. "Call an ambulance," I yelled back at the car. "He's alive." Ethan was behind me in seconds, yanking me up by the arm. His face was white, his eyes wild. "No," he said. "No police, no ambulance, not until we fix this." "Fix this? He's dying." He slapped me, hard. My head snapped to the side. "Listen to me," he snarled, shaking me by the shoulders. "You are going to say you were driving. Do you hear me? You were behind the wheel. It was an accident. You'll get a ticket. Maybe probation. Nothing serious. But if I get caught, I lose everything. And if I lose everything? He leaned in, voice low and deadly. Your dad's surgery? The only neurosurgeon on call who can handle his case is me. You want him to die on that table, Harper? Because I can make that happen. One small mistake during surgery and he's gone. Nobody would ever know. I went cold all over. He meant it. He dragged me back to the car, threw me into the driver's seat and grabbed a rag from the glove compartment. I watched, numb, as he wiped down the steering wheel, the door handle, every surface he'd touched, erasing himself. Lila sat in the back, quiet, holding her phone. She met my eyes in the rearview mirror. She didn't look sorry. She looked vindicated. I heard sirens in the distance. I looked back at the body on the side of the road. For just a second, the man's eyes fluttered open. He reached out, grabbed my ankle through the open door, and squeezed. His mouth moved, but I couldn't hear the words over the rain. Then Ethan slammed the door shut, and the sirens got louder. Chapter 4. The Man Who Vanished. The cops took me to the precinct at 3 a.m. Ethan stood on the sidewalk, all concern and charm, telling the officers how shaken up I was, how I'd been distraught over my dad and lost control of the car for a second. Lila stood beside him, tears in her eyes, backing up every word. I didn't say a thing. I kept my mouth shut through booking, through the interview, through the officer slamming his fist on the table and yelling at me to stop clamming up. Ethan's threat looped in my head. I can make sure your dad never wakes up. I couldn't risk it. Not yet. My lawyer, Larry Lawrence, my dad's oldest friend, got me out on bail by sunrise. He drove me to Gwen's place, my best friend since grade school, the only person I knew with more money and less patience for bullshit than me. Gwen opened the door in a red silk pajama set, her short blonde hair sticking up on one side. She took one look at my face, my puffy eyes, the bruise blooming on my cheek, and her jaw tightened. All right, she said, pulling me inside. Spill. Who do I have to kill? I told her everything. The affair with Lila, the apartment downstairs, the little girl, the crash. Ethan framing me. The threat against my dad. By the end, Gwen was already in the kitchen yanking a meat cleaver out of the knife block. That motherfucker, she snarled. And that little leech Lila? I'm gonna go to the hospital right now and beat both their asses into the ground. Gwen, I said, grabbing her arm. We can't. Not yet. If we piss him off, he'll hurt my dad. He's the only surgeon on staff who can do the surgery. Gwen's jaw worked. She hated feeling helpless almost as much as I did. Fine, she said. First things first, we find the guy Ethan hit. If he wakes up and tells the cops you weren't driving, this whole thing goes away. We drove to the hospital an hour later. The guy had been brought in overnight. They'd ID'd him from a half-scrawled name on a crumpled receipt in his pocket. Jasper Voss. Mid-20s, no ID, no wallet, nothing else on him. Gwen frowned when I said the name. Voss? That sounds familiar. Swear my dad was talking about someone named Voss the other day. We found his room on the second floor. A uniformed cop was standing outside talking to a nurse. We waited around the corner until they left. Then I cornered the nurse by the supply cart. Excuse me, I said, keeping my voice low. The patient in 205. Jasper? Has he woken up yet? The nurse glanced at me, assuming I was family. Not yet. He's still unconscious. He took a pretty bad hit. We've been trying to get his info, but he doesn't have any ID on him. She paused, pushing the door open. You can go in for a minute, just be quiet. She stopped, stared. The room was empty. The bed was made, the IV pole standing idle by the wall. The window was wide open, rain blowing in onto the sill. The nurse screamed. He's gone! The patient escaped! Chaos erupted. The cop came running, yelling, and within minutes the whole floor was on lockdown. The officer grabbed my arm, face furious. You, he snarled. You're the driver from last night. What did you do? Where did he go? Gwen got right up in his face, shoving him off me. Back the hell off. We just got here. You're the ones who couldn't keep an eye on one unconscious guy. Don't try to pin this on her. I stood there, numb, staring at the empty bed. My one witness. My one shot at proving Ethan had been driving. And he'd run. Why would he run? Why wouldn't he stay? Get treatment. Press charges. Unless he had something to hide. Something worse than getting hit by a car. We snuck up to the ICU floor a few minutes later. My dad was still unconscious, tubes down his throat, monitors beeping steady. Selena, my stepmom, was perched in the chair by the bed, scrolling TikTok. She looked up when I walked in, perfectly manicured eyebrow raised. Hey, she said casual. Heard you had a little car trouble last night. Yikes. You gotta be more careful. I ignored her. I went to the bed and held Dad's hand. It was cold. Lawyer was by earlier, Selena said, swinging her legs. Said something about Dad's will? Said he never finished signing it before he collapsed. If he doesn't wake up, everything gets split 3 ways. Me, you, and Jake. You know, since Jake's his son and all. I didn't answer. Jake was her 12-year-old, my half-brother, the golden child she'd been parading around since the day she married Dad. She'd been salivating over his practice and his money for years. Gwen opened her mouth to rip into her, but I shook my head. I couldn't deal with this right now. We stepped out into the hallway and ran straight into Ethan and Lila. Ethan was in his scrubs, looking tired and concerned, like he hadn't spent last night framing me for a hit and run. Lila was glued to his side, all wide-eyed sympathy. Baby, Ethan said, reaching for me. I was so worried about you. Are you okay? I flinched back. He dropped his hand, his eyes going cold for half a second, before he smoothed his expression back out. Look, he said, quiet, so only I could hear. Dad's surgery is scheduled for the day after tomorrow. You know what you need to do. Plead guilty to the accident, pay the fine, get it over with, and stop trying to find that guy. It won't help you. He ran for a reason. He's not going to show up to save you. He smiled, patted my arm, and walked away. Lila gave me a tiny, triumphant little smile over her shoulder before she followed him. I leaned against the wall, my legs shaking. He was right. With Jasper gone, I had nothing. No proof. No way out. Gwen was quiet on the drive back to her place. She'd pulled every contact she had, run every database, and come up with 2,000 men named Jasper in the greater Seattle area. It was a needle in a haystack. We sat in her kitchen that night, calling number after number, getting hung up on, yelled at, told we had the wrong guy. My throat was raw. I was about to give up, about to tell Gwen I'd just plead guilty, when my burner phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered it, my hands shaking. I told you not to call the cops, a voice said. Low, rough, breathless like he was running. Why the hell wouldn't you listen? It was him. Jasper. Jasper, please, I said, leaning forward. I need you to listen to me. I wasn't driving. My husband was. He's framing me. I need you to tell the police. You think I care about your little marriage drama? He snapped. You and your husband both brought cops down on me. I don't do cops. Stay the hell away from me. Wait, please, just... He hung up. I stared at the phone. The call had lasted 2 minutes and 47 seconds. 13 seconds short. 13 seconds before I'd had him on the line long enough for... A knock came at the hotel room door. Wait. No. We were at Gwen's. No. I'd booked a room downtown after leaving the hospital to be close. Gwen had stepped out to get us food. I walked over and peered through the peephole. 3 big guys in black suits, faces like stone. I stepped back, heart hammering. Before I could lock the deadbolt, one of them slammed a palm flat against the door, holding it open. They filed inside, scanning the room, quiet as shadows. "Get out," I said, voice shaking. "I'm calling the police." "Ms. Hayes." A man's voice from the hallway. Calm, low, polished. The guard stepped aside. A man in a tailored gray suit rolled into the doorway in a sleek black wheelchair. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp, handsome features and dark hair. He was wearing black sunglasses even indoors, even in the dim hotel room light. He pushed himself up out of the wheelchair with one hand, steady and easy, and stood to his full height. That's when I realized he wasn't hurt. He was blind. "I'm Elias Voss," he said. His voice was even, almost polite. "I believe you've been talking to my brother Jasper." Chapter 5. The Deal I Froze. Voss. The name Gwen had said sounded familiar. Elias Voss. The guy from the news. The reclusive billionaire investor who'd built a hedge fund empire before he turned 30. All while completely blind. The guy Gwen's dad was always trying to set her up with. "Oh. You bugged my phone?" I said, my throat tight. "Your call to Jasper was the first time his phone's turned on in 3 weeks," he said. He took a step forward, and one of the guards moved to guide him, but he waved him off. He knew exactly where he was going. "I tracked the signal straight here. I need to find my brother. And you're the last person he spoke to." I stared at him. "Why is he running? What did he do?" A faint, dry smile tugged at his mouth. "That's my business. Here's the deal, Ms. Hayes. You get him on the phone for 3 full minutes, long enough for me to lock onto his location. In return, I make your little hit and run problem go away, and I make sure your husband gets what's coming to him." I hesitated. "You'd do that? Why would you help me?" "Your husband hit my brother with a car and left him for dead," he said, voice cold now. "Then tried to pin it on you. I don't like people who hit and run, and I don't like cowards." He tilted his head slightly, like he was listening to me breathe. "So? Do we have a deal?" I thought about Ethan, about Lila, about my dad lying in that hospital bed, his life in Ethan's hands. I thought about the empty hospital bed, about Jasper vanishing into the rain. "I'll try," I said. "But he hates me right now." He won't answer. Elias pulled a business card out of his jacket pocket and held it out. I stepped forward and took it. Thick, embossed gold lettering, Elias Voss, Voss Capital. "Call me when you have him on the line," he said, "and don't tell him I'm involved. He won't stay on if he knows I'm looking." He turned, let his guard guide him back to the wheelchair, and they were gone as quietly as they'd come. I stood there holding the card, staring at the closed door. Gwen came back with takeout an hour later, ranting about her dad's latest attempt to marry her off to some blind billionaire guy who's supposedly a genius. I didn't tell her I'd already met him. She'd go ballistic that he'd tracked me to my hotel room. I didn't sleep that night. I texted Jasper number after number, begging, pleading, explaining. I told him Ethan was dangerous, that he'd tried to frame me, that I just wanted to clear my name. I sent 100 texts. At 7 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Jasper." I answered immediately, my heart in my throat. I hit the 3-way call button and dialed Elias's number before I could second-guess myself, muting his line. "You again," Jasper said. He sounded exhausted. "I told you to leave me alone. I'm not going to the cops. I'm not testifying. End of story." "Wait. Please," I said, stalling. I glanced at the timer on the screen. 007. Why did you run? You were hurt really bad. You could have died." He scoffed. "Cops would have asked too many questions. I got my own problems. I don't need a hit and run on top of it." "Ethan, the guy who was driving, he's a surgeon," I said, watching the seconds tick up. 0:45. 1 mark. He's been threatening my dad. He said he'd kill him on the operating table if I didn't take the blame for hitting you. He's evil, Jasper. He doesn't care who he hurts. Not my problem, he said, but he didn't hang up. 1:30. Too heck. I know you're running from something, I said softer. I get it. But you don't have to do this alone. I can help you. Whatever it is. Help me? He laughed, bitter. You don't even know who I am. You don't know what my brother's like. He cut himself off. 2:45. 2:50. 2:55. Jasper, wait, just 3? Aha. The line went dead. He'd hung up. I collapsed back against the headboard, breathing hard. 3 minutes, exactly. 30 seconds later, a text came through from an unknown number. Got him. Thank you. I didn't hear anything for the rest of the day. I sat in the hotel room and waited. Gwen stopped by, yelled at me for not calling her, then sat with me and held my hand. At 2 in the afternoon, my phone rang. It was the detective from the precinct. Ms. Hayes, he said, sounding gruff and annoyed. The victim, Jasper Voss, just contacted us, gave a statement. Says he was drunk, wandered out into the road on purpose. Says you weren't at fault. Charges are dropped. You're clear. I hung up the phone. I stared at the wall for a long time. It was over. The crash. The charges. Ethan's plan to frame me. It was all gone. But Ethan still had my dad's surgery. He still held all the cards there. I got up and headed for the hospital. I had to see Dad. I had to figure out a way to get Ethan off his case before the operation. I was halfway down the ICU hallway when I heard it. Shouting, nurses running, a gurney flying past me toward the OR. Dr. Bennett's hand, his finger. How did this happen? Who did this? I stopped a passing nurse. What's going on? Who's hurt? Dr. Bennett, she said, breathless. Ethan Bennett. Someone attacked him in the parking garage, cut off his index finger on his dominant hand. They're rushing him to surgery now. God, he'll never operate again. My blood ran cold. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A call from an unknown number. I answered it. Ms. Hayes, Elias Voss said. His voice was calm, matter of fact. I found my brother, and I settled things with your husband. A finger for nearly killing my brother. Seems fair, don't you think? I leaned against the wall. Down the hall, nurses were rushing around, panicking over the golden boy surgeon who'd just lost his career. I thought about Ethan slapping me, about him threatening to kill my dad, about him laughing in that apartment downstairs with the girl I'd raised like a sister. Fair, I said, quiet. More than fair. Elias made a low, amused sound. I owe you a favor, Ms. Hayes. You helped me find my brother. If you ever need anything at all, you call me. He hung up. I stood there for another minute, listening to the chaos down the hall. Ethan was in surgery. He'd never hold a scalpel again. His perfect career, everything he'd stolen from my dad, gone, and he had no one to blame but himself. I wiped my hands on my jeans, lifted my chin, and walked toward Ethan's recovery room. Chapter 6. Divorce Papers. Ethan was pale as a sheet when I walked in. His right hand was wrapped in thick bandages, propped up on a pillow. His eyes were red and puffy, like he'd been crying for an hour. He looked up when I came in. Rage twisted his face the second he saw me. You, he snarled. You did this. You put those guys up to it, didn't you? You cut off my finger. You ruined my life. I pulled a chair over and sat down across from his bed. Calm, cool, like he'd been to me 100 times before. Why would I do that? I said. You have a lot of enemies, Ethan. You step on a lot of people to get ahead. Eventually someone pushes back. He glared at me. The cop said the hit and run was dropped. Jasper came forward. You found him, didn't you? You paid him off to say it wasn't you. Doesn't matter how it happened, I said. I'm innocent. And you? You tried to frame me. You threatened my dad. You cheated on me for 5 years with a girl I was paying to put through college. His face went white. I smiled, sharp and cold. Oh, I know all about it, Ethan. Lila. The apartment on 6. The little girl. Mia. Is that her name? 5 years old. You started screwing her when she was 16, didn't you? Got her pregnant. Then used my money to take care of them both right under my nose. He opened his mouth to deny it. Closed it again. The anger drained out of him, replaced by something colder. Calculating. Okay, he said, slow. So you know. What do you want, Harper? Money? You want a divorce? Fine. But you're gonna make this worth my while. Your dad's practice? That's half mine. This apartment? Half mine. You think I'm walking away with nothing? I laughed. I actually laughed. You think you're getting half of anything? I said. You think I'm gonna let you walk away with a single thing you stole from my family? I leaned forward, voice low. You cheated. You committed fraud. You tried to frame me for a felony. I have enough to bury you, Ethan. I'm taking everything. The house. The cars. Every dollar you've made off my dad's name. You're lucky I don't press charges. His face twisted. You can't do that. You have no proof. The door opened. Lila ran in, breathless, her eyes red. Ethan, I heard what happened. Oh my God, are you okay? She froze when she saw me. I stood up, smoothing out my sweater. Perfect timing, I said. I was just leaving. I'll have my lawyer drop off divorce papers by the end of the week. You two can enjoy your little family downstairs. Just don't expect to pay for it with my money anymore. I turned and walked toward the door. Harper! Ethan yelled after me, voice cracking. You can't do this. We're married. You love me. I stopped in the doorway. I didn't look back. I loved the man I thought you were, I said, the man my dad believed in. But you were never him. You were just a thief. And now you've got nothing left to steal. I walked out. The door clicked shut behind me. Down the hall, the afternoon sun was streaming through the windows. I pulled out my phone, pulled up Elias Voss's number, and stared at it for a second. I didn't call him. Not yet. I had a divorce to win, a dad to take care of, a life to put back together. And for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't scared. I slipped the phone back in my pocket, lifted my chin, and walked toward the ICU to see my dad. The hard part was over. The rest was just cleanup.